So our next speaker, she will be speaking on a very contemporary and relevant topic. But before that, I wanted to recite a very small poem. So the poem goes, holding her head high, with a resolute look, possessing dauntless courage and wisdom, she never feels subservient. The emerging modern woman fabricates her own traits by obliterating the customs of engulfing in murk named ignorance, and suppresses the routine of living a melancholic life. So this poem is by Bharati. I think Jiva J ma'am will be able to tell us a little more about it. So ma'am, could you please quickly sum it up in like two or three lines about what it is, and then we'll move forward to our next speaker who's already here.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Poetry is my cup of tea. I love poem. Poetry is, after all, the language of every woman. It's the language of her mind and heart, and it's not the language of what to say, your mind. It has got nothing to do with your mind. It has got to do with your heart, how you conceive, how you interpret, how you put it forth. Fine. So Bharati is my much, what to say, I just love the poet a lot. That I read every line that's written by him, and it's fully packed with energy, and it encourages you that you become like Shakti herself. Shakti can be reflected in his poem. When you read one poem, you feel that you are imbibed with enormous Shakti, that you can go on and on doing every work that a woman can do in this world. Nothing is impossible for a woman. And this poem goes like this, that when a woman becomes a very resolute person, resolute in the sense very determined, firm to do what she has decided to do. When you decide something, you have to be firm in carrying out it. And when you are like that, you are afraid of nobody because you don't falter. When you don't falter, you are not afraid of anybody. You have good hope. You have hope as your target, and thereby you don't go and bow your head before anybody who are at fault. See, many a times we feel that sometimes we have to give in, sometimes we have to reconcile, sometimes we have to compromise to get our work done. But Bharati says that a resolute woman, a determined woman, a woman who has firm targets, firm ideas will not be like that. She is the woman of India. She is a new woman of India who will take the country forward, and she will also be like that. A woman with dauntless courage. That's what it is. Dauntless courage. Enough courage
Right.
will not go back in your commitments. That's what a
Right.
new woman is, according to Bharati. Right,
No.
Anushka?
Thank you so much,
Thank
ma'am.
you, thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker will be speaking on a very contemporary and relevant topic, like I just said. Ma'am Sapna Kumari is a faculty member in the Department of English at Miranda House, DU. She is also associated with the Policy Center and Gender Lab of the college as a mentor, guiding young researchers in the group. She is pursuing a PhD in English, University of Delhi, on the intersectionality of various factors and concerns involving a focus on fourth wave feminism and social media activism with reference to a few select writers. She will be talking about room for one's own, women's fight to claim spaces and places in India. And I'm sure you must have found the topic very different and new. Let's find out what ma'am has to tell us. We welcome you, ma'am, to the forum. Go on.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction. And right at the very onset, I would just like to congratulate the entire team of Trans Brahma and Women for Empowerment, along with Ensemble IS Academy, and the entire team who has actually put in this entire plethora of all the host of speakers who've gathered together. I've been regularly following it, and I actually follow those speakers. Some of them I could manage to actually tune into. I follow the panel right now. And I must tell you that there's something very inspiring for me as well, something very important to take away from this entire day. So I thank Sumitra ma'am, because I believe that she gave me such a wonderful opportunity. So I would wholeheartedly extend my gratitude to ma'am for giving me this platform to speak and share some of my ideas. To begin with, yeah, one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. So there's a reason, I begin my speech by the following line, which has been given by one of the most powerful feminist figures, one of the earliest mothers of empowerment, we can say. So there's a reason why I use this particular phrase, because I want to reemphasize the fact that how even now a woman's identity is somewhere, determined by a number of factors, which is externally created and certainly detrimental for our growth. The title, as Anushka has very beautifully put ahead, yeah, it's a room of one's own, and women's fight to claim spaces and aces, in this particular country. And this particular phrase, which I've actually borrowed from another seminal essay, which most of you must be, aware of, and that is from Virginia Woolf, published around 1929. Now, the reason I picked up this particular phrase and added into a part of my own speech today is that it was a very important feminist text. Now, this essay, argues for both a literal as well as a figurative space for women writers within a literary tradition specifically, which is dominated by men. Now, using that extended metaphor right now, I would like to just argue, or I believe that all of us can actually argue together, that we are yet to explore a lot of social injustices and women's lack of free expression and right to make choices in her own life. So again, reiterating Woolf here, centuries of prejudice, financial and educational disadvantages have hampered women's creativity and sustenance. So this close association between financial stability, and independence has a strong impact on the overall existence of women, as well as in determining their own spaces and choices in life. So taking my argument, or rather inspiration, from these initial thoughts and considering the paucity of time as well, I would just like to perhaps draw the trajectory of this entire discourse about women's right and claim to two of the important areas. Now, I would just like to maybe just talk or discuss, or maybe open the forum for discussion, for women's spaces, specifically in their private life as well as in their public life, right? So here I would like to talk about spaces at home, and we are talking about individual spaces within the unit of family structure and what are its implications. And obviously I'll be talking, discussing a little bit about spaces at a public forum, or let's say in their professional life. When we talk about spaces at home, I was just wondering over, like we've grown so much, and certainly we made a lot of advancement in terms of women empowerment. But when I still talk about, women's situation and their status in these smaller family units, that it is there that we find out some of the very grassroots level experiences, which actually go otherwise our own experiences, and we would go against those claims that, okay, yeah, we've been progressive enough, right? For example, in a family structure, and India is necessarily, is into it, right? So we have a whole lot of a joint family, neutral family, and you call it whatever you may. But when I look back into these small spaces, these private spaces, can we rightly claim that women have a say in our families? And by here, I would like to specify, I'm not just talking about the upper class and the upper, the higher class, or the privileged, quote unquote, women of the family in our country, because that's also one of the concerns, and I've also followed some of the speakers today, some of the delegates and dignitaries who've spoken about it as well. So maybe extending it further, like how far do you think that women or girls in a family have a say in their own life, right? So if you talk about decision making, how many women do you see coming up really very frequently, and taking some of the important quote unquote decisions, such as related to properties and financial status, some of the customary practices in tradition, some of the rituals which are being carried ahead? I just find women as a carrier and not actually decision maker per se. So this could be one of those, concerns. Personally, I believe that we need to look at. Then, what about the decision? Other than the concerns, other than the decision making, I mean, do we find women actually, having that space in her own family where they have a say in making the choices of partner when it comes to marriage, right? Now, we are still living in a system where we definitely have arranged marriages. We also have moved ahead, and we have also taken up, quote unquote, love plus arranged marriage, or let's say marrying on your own terms. But even if you talk about the majority, we still do believe in this arranged system, this entire structural pattern of marriages in our family, right? So how much a girl has a say in that? Is she free enough to choose a partner of her own, right? So whom would she like to marry? When would she like to marry? What if she never wants to marry, right? So are we really talking about the status of single women? I must say that maybe categorically speaking, if we talk about in the mainstream academia or even the mainstream culture discourse, I don't find much of a talk here going around about single women, right? Those who just choose to stay single. Similarly, how much of a say or a space given to a woman, or how much of a space can she claim when it comes to owning her own body, right? How much of a right does she have on her own body, right? With whom would she like to be intimate with, both before and after marriage, obviously? And here, obviously, I would like to bring in the entire talk about the consent issues and related to consent. And this is where obviously a lot of violence has already been, like aroused out of it. And then obviously about one's own sexuality. And I was just following, one of the panelists also, mentioning about here, we need to actually look at, is a woman really free enough to even talk about her own sexuality? We don't talk about homosexuals very, very often in our own spaces. So in the private space, yes, in these home spaces of a family, I mean, it's still a big deal, right? I mean, look at the middle class and the necessarily, essentially the lower classes of the women concerned and these families. You don't find young women and younger, literally so liberal, maybe freely talking about these issues. I find that lacking. So where we have made some kind of progress, yes, we also indeed have to look at these complexities. Similarly, when we talk about public spaces, or let's say gaining or claiming spaces in their public sphere when it comes to their profession, when it comes to their workplace and career choices. Now, do we really welcome female leadership? How much are we really excited and passionate about transformative leadership? I mean, we've begun today's session, with one of the inspiring women leaders in our country, right? Srimati Maneka Gandhi ji. Now, I really wonder how many, such women leaders can actually be brought up in our own home spaces. Do we really welcome women who really do well and who are really brilliantly making progress in the professional sphere? I mean, I especially, and you have to agree, a lot of professional spheres, a lot of field of employability, where we find male dominant areas in specific areas in the field. You have to agree that not many appreciate women taking up a higher rank or position in most of these professional spaces. And I say that from personal experiences as well, right? Just consider a woman holding a position vis-a-vis a man holding a position, right? So this is something, sort of an eyebrow-raising kind of an issue. Even now, we have to talk about from there, those levels, because we are talking about every life and every experience, that we just cannot overlook these factors. So maybe one very quick example could be, let's say, like I say, like I just mentioned about male dominant sphere and area. So take an example when there is a traffic jam, for example, when somebody is stuck in a traffic, right? And a woman driving a car, a four-wheeler, for example, or even on a scooty, and you just find out a couple of men as well, obviously being stuck there in the traffic. Just try to look at, I don't know whether anyone of you have ever observed, just one example, an anecdote. So if I have found many men, let's say, looking at those women with kind of an eyebrow-raising kind of expression, oh, who does she think she is, right? I don't think she can really handle that. I don't think she's really doing that. So there's a kind of a questioning, there's a kind of doubting the worth. And this is so symbolic of how are these patterns of hierarchy is being carried ahead in our spaces, in our public space. And obviously catcalling exists everywhere, in every form. So what I really wanted to perhaps use this platform for was that maybe let us or enable us to go back to these particular situations and these particular problems as well, which are equally detrimental towards our higher, achieving of a higher self. These are equally detrimental towards our progress. And maybe to give it a kind of a conclusive shape, I've been, as a part of my entire decade long of teaching experiences, I would perhaps also look towards two specific areas which has equal potential, towards ensuring this kind of a women empowerment, or towards the celebration of women in the days to come, and not just a particular day, like even our chief guest for the day also said. So what are the possibilities and potentialities, and how can we actually tackle, and how can we actually free each other, right, from just not ensuring that, okay, we are pulling each other back? And I mean, like here, obviously I also talk about women, right? Even women can be equally patriarchal. So let's also agree that patriarchy is not just a system, rather it's also a mindset, right? So two specific areas where I find we need to definitely consider while we are tackling with these entire women empowerment issue. Number one, we need to definitely sensitize and train young women and girls. Like coming from a women's college and being thoroughly into it, like I said, for the past 10 years, I can guarantee, and I would like to vouch for this particular area, I can definitely say for sure that if we just take charge of perhaps training our younger minds, the younger women and younger girl, towards enabling them, so they become so free and they become so self-dependent, so much wiser, so much discerning about their own decisions, that they are able to make those choices for themselves, right? So that a girl does not have to necessarily ask in her own family about what to do, or for example, if a girl really wants to pursue a particular career, uh, that girl is never subdued from doing so. For example, do we really give that freedom to young girl and young women in our family who would, let's say, can say without any fear that, yeah, I would like to pursue a career in modeling, or I would like to pursue a career of acting, I would like to become a dancer, for example. How about somebody saying, I would just like to take risk with life and become an entrepreneur? I mean, I'm just trying to draw our attention perhaps, and which I'm pretty sure most of you have already done and must have done also, and perhaps this kind of a reassertion about the same point. We need to look at these small spaces where perhaps a big change can actually be ensured and it can be brought in. So training these young minds can become very important. We have an intergenerational gap, no doubt about it. So I somewhere find there's a potential here. We need to bring the generations back together. So like I see the young ones here, like Anushka is one of them, right? And I've obviously heard a lot of the women out here who themselves are such an inspirational figures. So like how they're joining hands together and perhaps working towards this entire bigger cause. We need to ensure that there is a discourse happening between two generations. We need not just leave it like there's a generational gap and I don't see it happening. I don't see how two generational women, one being younger and the become older one, can actually work together hand in hand. No, I definitely can say from my own experiences, give them some opportunity. All right, listen to them. These young women perhaps are full of that vision, and perhaps that vision needs to be fueled further. So this could be one important area where I feel that India as a nation can actually work at, right? Because you may say that the older generation may be rigid enough and we can't do anything about it, but let's at least focus somewhere where we do have some power and some strength and some potential. And the second important thing, I believe, and this is something which is also a part of my own research, and that I definitely feel that this entire discourse about feminism, quote unquote, movements happening here, or these issues about women empowerment, somewhere lacks some kind of an intersectionality. So perhaps an intersectional approach need to be involved, in our patterns, in our paradigms, where we work within the rubric of entire social structural norms, right? So we have to agree that all women do not suffer alike. So one section of a woman, let's say, or one section or one kind of category, let's say, a women coming from a lower strata may be entirely suffering differently from somebody who is coming from a privileged class. And we cannot go into that level, or let's say we'll be committing a mistake if we just go on to bring them back together and just try to look at them from a single lens. There cannot be a uniformity here when we are trying to approach their problem, because we have to understand India as a nation is pretty diverse. So we are talking about a land of diverse religion, a land of diverse caste and class. So we need to address these specifically, right? A woman from a lower caste or class suffers differently, and perhaps in many instances, she suffers more. So that approach needs to be, brought in, right? I mean, even in our own spaces, whenever we consider certain issues, we can't just claim and speak from a position of privilege. We have to consider that there are women who are suffering more than perhaps a particular section who may be just a little bit privileged, let's say, for example. So what can we do to bring them in, right? So in order to bring that transformation, I believe this kind of an intersectionality need to be brought in. We need to consider these factors as well. So what are the reasons if a Dalit woman really suffers more than a woman who must be coming from a high caste? Just for example, we need to consider the age factor. We need to consider region. We need to consider class, definitely. We need to consider race in many manners, right? I mean, so these are different positions. And I believe that if at all we are discussing on such a wonderful platform, something like this, so perhaps two of the important areas where I would like to personally contribute and perhaps enable others to perhaps think about it, or where more interventions are welcome, and they have to be these two. Having an intersectional approach, so if we are making a noise, let's say we are making on behalf of every section. Now it may sound definitely impossible, but I believe that this is certainly fathomable, right? This is somewhere capable. This has the potential of bringing about that change. And yes, secondly, and nevertheless, I should say, training young women, training young girls. And I personally believe that, like you just listen to them and you'll find out they're so much full of power and so much full of vision. And we need not just subjugate their voices. We're talking about raising voices, right? Raising these words and making these powerful words. So I believe that if we, as a fraternity, as a community, would just listen to each other, I believe a lot can be achieved. So that is one of the ways in which I would like to just perhaps I may have contributed. I really don't know how much time did I actually take. I may be a little bit, yeah.
Thank you. It was a very refreshing. It was a very refreshing speech. I've been listening since morning, but I was enraptured. I was hearing every word.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Anushka.
No, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.